Happy Mario Day, chaps! 'Tis I, Clampuncher139. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is probably my least favorite Mario game, and frankly, I have absolutely no reason behind this. I guess it just never sat right with me as a kid, so I've just held this negative opinion about it for the last 8 years. However, one aspect I do view positively is the final Bowser fight. Bowser in New Super Mario Bros. Wii is probably my favorite Mario boss of all time. In fact, I like it so much that I'm about to convince all of you that it is objectively the greatest Mario boss of all time. Because this fight is absolutely masterful in literally every aspect, to the point that I'm willing to call it flat out art. Yup, a fire-breathing turtle trying to murder a red-clad ex-plumber is worthy of the title of art. Don't believe me? Then let me convince you otherwise. Let's start with the part of the fight that nobody talks about, the fake-out. By this point in time, we've pretty much become accustomed to Bowser having the fake, easy fight before coming back bigger and stronger in a much better second fight. The following 2 new games did it, 3D Land and World did it. Heck, Yoshi's Island was the first to do it, not even Mario himself. But back in 2009, this was something of a novelty. New Super Mario Bros. DS didn't really try this to the same extent. It had a Bowser fight in World 1, then Dry Bowser in World 8, but it had the bridge fight you would expect as a final boss with no second phase. This fight forgoes all the previous Bowser buildup and just gives you the big guy right away. Heck, from what I can tell, this was also the first game with the fireballs down the hall before the fight that we see in every new game after this. And it's honestly a great build-up, showing that Bowser doesn't care about a fair fight with Mario here. He just wants him dead as soon as possible. And if that means fighting him on the bridge, so be it. Not like he'll save the princess even if he comes out on top, because Bowser thought ahead for this fight and replaced Peach with Kamek, who promptly just bursts out of the cage upon Bowser's defeat and sprinkles his magic. This first fight debate was something that players hadn't seen in almost 15 years, so seeing Kamek suddenly burst out and do the same thing he did in Yoshi's Island was really surprising and kind of ingenious on Nintendo's part. It's either a great callback that veteran players get to Leo point at, or a genuine surprise from newer players who get this as their first Mario game. Because remember, this was the first time this kind of thing happened, so we weren't expecting it like we do nowadays. Point being, before we even start the fight, we have multiple strokes of brilliance. And when Kamek finishes sprinkling his magic, we all know what comes next. Aside from maybe Yoshi's Island, can't really tell, this is pretty much the biggest that Bowser has ever been. And unlike the goofier Bowser of today's Mario games, this one is all business. He roars like never before and is now out for Mario's blood. But in a blind rage, he doesn't go ahead and take out his foe the smart way. He's got Mario cornered with literally nowhere to run. He could just grab him, throw him on the ground, and squish him to death. But on top of that being a pretty terrible boss fight, what happens is perfectly in character for Bowser. He just lost, so he's in a blind rampage mode. Not as blind as Fury mode, but certainly still pretty angry. In that blind rage, he does the least logical thing and tries to burn Mario alive with a massive fireball. But in doing this, he misses, and creates a path for his prey to escape. And what already makes this aspect of the fight interesting is that it sets itself up to teach you how the fight is gonna work the moment it starts. Bowser's roar is more than just a scary noise and a cool visual watching it push Mario back. It also happens to push Mario into the perfect position to begin teaching the player. Mario being pushed into this corner allows Bowser's first fireball to perfectly hit the wall to progress you forward. And since you end up jumping to avoid this fireball, it also shows you that Bowser is going to specifically aim at Mario. This teaches you exactly how the fight will work going forward before it even starts, and does so in a perfectly natural way that no player would even bat an eye at. Which is especially more impressive when you consider that this is a bunch of completely new mechanics that you've never seen in this game, or even in a Bowser fight in general. There are no levels where you need to make something aim at you and carve your path forward with dangerous explosions. This is the first, and as far as I know, only version of this kind of level. So it was really important that they got this teaching moment right on the first try and didn't need to waste your time with the tutorial to make sure that players got it. The rest of this fight is a desperate struggle for ground as you try to escape the imminent danger approaching from behind. So it's kind of an auto-scroller, but, you know, good. Bowser constantly shoots fire at Mario in an attempt to snipe his foe out of the air, but in doing so, accidentally creates his path forward. You have to use Bowser's fire to carve your path and keep gaining ground before he swipes you out of the air. And since the player was initially taught this fight's gimmick as soon as it started, they already understand exactly what they need to do to progress forward. They see walls blocking their progress, so stand in front of them to make Bowser take aim and destroy them. And they have to, because every 3 or 4 shots, Bowser will swipe the stage in front of him, bringing him closer to you. This puts every little section of the fight on a soft time limit, because even though Bowser will usually take his sweet-ass time trying to attack Mario, once he does, you've lost a lot of ground. So you have to keep moving and try to keep as much distance between you and Bowser as possible. But, of course, Bowser doesn't let you get away that easily. If he sees you getting too far away, he won't bother slowly walking up to you, no. He'll just straight up jump through the stage to catch up to Mario, which forces you to always be on your toes. Even if you start gaining ground on Bowser thinking you're about to get away, he'll jump right to you and take away all your ground. So you have to constantly think ahead and know where to jump to be ready for Bowser's next attack. It's all a genius balancing act of staying within Bowser's range so he'll shoot fire at you, but also getting far enough away so he doesn't swipe you off the stage. And you know what's even better? This is only phase 1. Phase 2 takes every mechanic I just praised, throws it out the window, and yet it still works. Phase 2 is all about running as far away from Bowser as possible, as fast as possible. Now there's no walls for you to destroy and create a path, just some floating platforms and, oh yeah, lava. Oh, and need I mention that Bowser just casually stands in it like water? No big deal. Remember how it just straight melted his skin off in New Super Mario Bros. DS? And now he's just walking in it like you'd trudge through the ocean? Yeah, he's definitely screaming bloody murder now. Real gamers don't take the free propeller mushroom and instead play this fight legit. Bowser will constantly be jumping after you as you keep running through the rest of the stage, and every time he jumps, he creates a giant wave of lava, forcing you to stay high above the moat. But at the same time, the castle begins to have walls blocking the highest points, which then forces you to either wait for Bowser to clear them with fire, or risk the lava wave by going under them. Both are great risks that you'll have to consider taking if you want to win this level. So even though it technically throws away the earlier introduced mechanics, it also subtly reintroduces them with the low-hanging walls. You can take a risk and try waiting out Bowser to hope he'll shoot a perfectly placed fireball that'll carve the path forward, or take an even bigger risk and narrowly avoid the lava wave, combining mechanics of both phases together to create a cohesive and balanced fight experience. As you narrowly escape a lava wave and start to gain some ground on Bowser, you hear something just off the screen. It's Peach calling for Mario in possibly the most scared voice clip she's ever had. And just think about it. Peach has been caged at the end of this long hallway for probably hours at this point, and she just hears a wave of destruction headed her way, along with Bowser's intense roars. They keep getting louder and louder, the impact growing stronger every second, the room shaking around her. And all of a sudden, she sees Mario jumping just above the lava and Bowser right behind him. The walls and ceiling come crashing down as Mario gets closer and closer, so she cries out his name, both in relief and in terror. She sees the terrible scenario before her and just has to hope Mario can come out on top, despite the intense odds. And as Mario reaches that platform with the button, Bowser jumps back into frame one final time. He shoots more fire in a final attempt to keep Mario away from the button that he knows will spell his doom. But he doesn't make it. Mario is able to press the button and defeat Bowser. At first he's shocked. He looks around to make sure Mario actually just did that. But then he feels the ground break beneath him. He sinks into the ground of his own castle as Mario looks on in victory. The castle crumbles around him as he slowly sinks below. Mario, the ultimate victor. And what I find most surprising about this finale is that, technically, Mario didn't even defeat Bowser. He didn't hurt him a bunch and knock him out or even outright kill him. He just sent him away. He had to basically trap Bowser below his castle so that he and Peach could escape before he catches up to them. That's just how powerful Bowser is in this fight. And yet, Mario still came out on top. Despite the terrifying odds against him, Mario was smart enough to survive. After everything I've praised this fight for, would you believe that arguably the best part of it is the music? Now, I don't know jack shit about music theory, but I can pretty safely say that the music of this fight is quite possibly the best piece of Mario music ever. Let's start with the thing you hear right away for the entire song. The bells. These 3 bells are there constantly, and immediately give you a sense of dread. I can't explain why, but you just know something terrible is following you with every ring of these bells. These damn bells are just the perfect overarching percussion for a fight like this. They're so simple and they're clearly meant to dominate the song, but at the same time they don't disrupt the main melody. The melody in question is so comparatively quiet in the background of the bells, trying desperately to break through, almost like it's a representation of Mario and Bowser. More on that in just a second. The music in Phase 1 is pretty good, but it's Phase 2 that makes me consider this the greatest piece of Mario music ever. When the chorus comes in and starts harmonizing in the background, it's just so damn good! It simultaneously creates chaos on the soundtrack as you have multiple parts fighting for control of your ears, but they all flow together in such a way that you can perfectly hear everything exactly when you need to hear it. Because this song is literally a representation of the fight. The bells represent Bowser, clearly dominating the song just as Bowser dominates the screen, superseding the main melody, which represents Mario. It's much more meager in the background compared to the bells, just as Mario is literally a speck compared to Bowser. But it always triumphs just before it loops, just before the bells come back in to dominate it. And this really makes sense, right? The bells are so simple and intimidating, they're clearly meant to represent the pure evil that is Bowser. Meanwhile, the melody is far more triumphant and heroic. Despite the small feeling of hopelessness it no doubt instills alongside the bells, it always turns itself around to bring you that last second feeling of hope, exactly what Mario needs to get out of this fight. And when Phase 2 comes around, the chorus comes in just as the lava does. The chorus now dominates the bells, just as the lava has now become the more imminent threat than Bowser. But at the same time, the main melody has also turned up in volume. It doesn't quite dominate the bells, let alone the chorus, but it almost works in tandem with them, always bursting to life when they quiet down, just as Mario has become far more confident after escaping the destructible maze and now being allowed to move freely and run the hell away from Bowser. It's rare that a piece of background music can work in tandem to tell the story at the same time as the fight itself. I don't think a single other Mario game has done anything even remotely similar. While there are a ton of great fight themes against Bowser especially, none of them have been able to tell a story without even seeing the gameplay. Like, what are you gonna tell me about Galaxy 2, 3D Land, Yoshi's Island, or Mario 64 fight themes beyond them just being epic? What stories do they tell beyond Mario fighting Bowser for the 17th time? They just don't. Which is what makes New Super Mario Bros. Wii's fight all the more impressive. What I find most surprising about this fight is that it was the first time a Bowser fight wasn't a fight at all. Rather than creating some crazy new spectacle where you need to actually fight against Bowser in a one-on-one bout, New Super Mario Bros. Wii took a different approach and treated the boss fight as a traditional level. This, ironically, kind of started a renaissance of Bowser fights for the next few years. With New Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario 3D Land, and Super Mario 3D World all featuring platform-centered boss fights against Bowser, with 3D Land and World also being considered some of the best fights in the series. We don't talk about New Soup 2, but the fact that this one fight started a mini trend for Bowser that created even more of the most praised battles in his catalog is impressive in and of itself. While it does seem like we're at the end of the platforming Bowser fight era, with all 3 Mario games on the Switch having more traditional fights against him, I really hope we eventually see a return to this more innovative and frankly impressive era of Bowser fights. And that's what this fight is above all else. Impressive. For a series criticized for doing everything except what its title promised, it's amazing how innovative this title was with creating a new type of Bowser fight experience. And it's really a shame that almost nobody talks about this incredible fight. What's also amazing is that they were able to balance 2 completely different fights into one and not make either phase feel lazy. Like, when you really think about it, you could very easily make Phase 2 in Super Mario Maker if you wanted. It's literally just moving platforms in lava. It couldn't be more basic than this, right? And yet, it still just works. Not only because of the lava waves, but that looming threat of Bowser always slowly lurking in the background, making sure you're going fast enough. It's honestly a miracle that it works at all. With all that said, do all the YouTube stuff, because Bowser needs a lot more interesting fights. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later, chaps.